And welcome to T0 Endurance webinar series. Today is going to be a great day. We've got a great guest on today, Greg Nance. Thank you so much for joining us.
Rob, thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, now your backstory, we're going to get to that because it could take the whole time. But, you know, I love the way that you talked on your website. And you can go to gregnance.org and find out more about him and all the great things that he does. But I love how you say, I'm an entrepreneur and an ultramarathon runner, expanding education access. Now, tell us a little more about just the basics of you.
Yeah, so number one, I am the luckiest guy that you probably ever met. I grew up in a wonderful community outside Seattle, wonderful parents, big sister, little brother that were always encouraging and inspiring me. And since I was quite little, I've been chasing things that interested me, things that made me smile. And a bunch of years later, I feel really, really lucky to be working on projects that help students find their path, help students find opportunities that make them smile and create opportunities for them to attain a college education with little to no debt, thanks to scholarships. And I'm on a mission and I'm having a great time doing it.
I love it. I love it. At age 31, you've challenged life a lot. Now, what are a few things? A lot of people are going through challenges right now, and we have a lot of triathletes and a lot of marathoners and a lot of endurance athletes that are listening to these webinars. What are some of the things that you can help them to remind them to be positive during these times, that the challenging times will go away?
Absolutely. And I'm feeling that every day. A number of times I just lay in bed for 5, 10, 20 minutes saying, oh, there's so much to do and the world's just a madhouse right now. For me, it always comes back to how can I win the morning? How can I have a productive morning? And for me, it's like get a little 15-minute stretch break in, have a nice fruit smoothie with some protein powder, and then start on the work day. And if I can just do that, I feel like things are going to go well. I'm going to have a good day. So winning the morning helps me get into the right mindset to then make it a good day.
I love that. Win the morning. Now we talk about winning, and one of the coolest things that you did that I loved about was you were the 12 ambassador for the Seattle Seahawks. Russell Wilson, a Wisconsin guy.
Yes.
That was in 2016. Tell me more about what that was about.
Yeah, so I've actually been based in Shanghai for work. Started a company. We're based in China, and I was super homesick the entire time I was over there. The one way that I felt really connected back home to Seattle was watching Seahawks, but it's not Sunday football. It's actually Monday morning football due to the time zone difference. And so I'm up at 3 a.m., 5 a.m. watching the game. And my little ritual, I would actually run from my apartment. And Shanghai has a really big city, 24 million people. I'm running 15 miles to the sports bar in my 12 jersey, rooting on the Hawks, and then running back home 15 miles before I start Monday in the week. And so that was my little routine for a couple of years. The Seahawks were looking to do a little fan documentary about 12s around the world and these crazy Seahawks fans. They found me, and they decided to come out and actually film me doing my little pregame ritual, and it was the opportunity of a lifetime. So I'm still pinching myself 4 years later.
Oh, I mean, that's amazing. And it's the 12, when the meaning of 12 is like the 12th person on the field, because it's, the fans are the people that bring forward the power within the 11 that are actually on the field at the time, right?
That's right.
I love it. Well, I want to get into some of the things that you have accomplished, and it's a huge list. For being only 31 years old, you have pushed the limits of what is humanly possible. So now tell me some of actually, why don't you tell me, if you can, what your top 2 achievements would be in the endurance realm?
Top 2 in the endurance realm. I think my background actually is a climber. So I grew up hiking the Olympics and Cascades here, and then got really into climbing. First volcanoes with my family when I was 13, Mount St. Helens, and just wanted to do bigger and tougher stuff. I think my first big climb that I was really stoked on was a solo of the Ganella Glacier on Mont Blanc. So went up there, which was probably above my pay grade, but somehow, some way made it to the top in one piece, old 10 fingers, 10 toes still. So that was awesome. And after that, I got hooked on running, because there's a great running culture in Europe. I was studying business there in England, and the run that I'm kind of most excited about was this World Marathon Challenge, 7 marathons, 7 days, 7 continents. Knocked that out a year ago, and it was really tough covering the 183 miles within that 168 hours as we're flying around the world. And I wasn't feeling well. I had a stomach bug that really, really just like kind of wiped out my race plan. And so it was, I was excited about how I kind of got back off the canvas after getting really knocked out the first race in Antarctica. So those are the 2 endurance challenges that, looking back, I'm kind of most stoked on here.
And you go to the World Marathon Challenge and you go from Antarctica, and like the temperature changes were crazy because you were in Dubai too, right?
That's right. Yeah. So it's freezer to the furnace, man, from the very beginning. So Antarctica, it's sub-zero, it's wind chill, it's crazy. You're getting numbed just even while running hard. Your fingers and toes and ears and nose super numb. And then 10 hours later, you're in Cape Town running another marathon, and now it's 100 Fahrenheit, and you're sweating bullets, and you take off your shirt, but you're gonna get sunburned. And so if you're complected like me, so it definite challenges.
And now, how do you actually adjust your mindset for that? Because you go from finishing one to hopping on a plane, trying to recover, and then going to another. It has to be about something bigger. And tell me about that. More about that.
Yeah, no, totally. So it's both like tactically. So tactically, you train for that. So I spent an entire year preparing myself to go from hot to cold. And so in the summer, I would do my runs, and then I would jump into a cold shower, and then do a workout while I'm actually physically very, very cold from the shower. And then in the winter, I'm running, shirtless outside before going to a sauna, and then just cranking cardio kind of with the temperature variation. And that gets the mind right, gets the body ready. That's definitely helpful. But tactics is only part of the equation. I think remembering why this is important to you. And for me, I'm a competitor. I want to see what I'm capable of. I want to push myself to the furthest extent possible. And that means seeking out these really, really big challenges. And I love sharing the story along the way, especially with students that we serve. And I knew with the World Marathon Challenge that hundreds of students within our Money Think program, they're following along with how I'm doing on this. And I always say, look, you can't give up on your dream. It's going to be hard. You've got to find a way to push through. And I have to follow my own advice here. I can't bail just because it's difficult. And so that was my mentality. Look, man, you're not doing this just for yourself. There's all these guys, and I want to be an inspiration. I don't want to throw in the towel when the going gets tough.
I love it. And you talk about pay it forward, because you got to go to your dream schools because of some scholarships. And so you've created some great collaborations that from Dyad to Money Think to help individuals who would struggle to even get through college or get into college to do that. Tell me a little more, because I just want to give one more piece of thing that, like Dyad, you have on the advisor board a former CEO of McDonald's as well as a retired secretary of the U.S. Air Force. So these are powerful entities. Tell me a little more what they do for these individuals. Yeah.
So as I mentioned at the very outset, I'm one of the luckiest people around. And one of the ways that's manifested in my life is I've just had very, very awesome mentors all around, kind of almost accidentally, just by like living my life. I've had great coaches, a great pastor, great teachers, great parents. And you can take that for granted really, really easily when that's all you know. As I've gotten a little bit older, I started connecting with friends that had none of those opportunities, where they may not have had a dad in their household. They didn't have a coach that invested in them, or they didn't have folks around to really guide them. And so they had to really scrap tooth and nail for everything. And the more I heard about that, the more I realized, wow, like there are so many people out there that want to make a difference, that want to give back if they knew how. And what if we could actually use technology to connect people together? And the more I learned, the more I realized, hey, there are folks all around the world that just have no access to good advice around getting into university. And that's both in inner city communities, rural communities here in the United States. And it's also, in China, where I was working before, and India, and across emerging markets. So we built a couple different models, social impact style, where we were able to work with kind of middle class, working class students and their families, giving advice about how to go through the university application and the scholarship process, because it's enormously expensive. We know that. And especially if your family's only earning, a couple $100s a month, it's completely untenable unless you have a scholarship. And so we're on a mission to pay it forward. And thanks to some really great colleagues and some awesome mentors and advisors, we've been able to take a bunch of big steps to make that happen.
And I love that because in diet you talk about the transformative power of mentorship,
Hey.
and you really are talking about that here. And you translate that into training and the endurance sports environment. Mentorship is probably one of the keys to being successful. What would be one of the biggest? Who would be one of the biggest mentors of your life?
Yes, I mean, from the time I remember, I've loved to run, in part because my dad loved to run. And so I would literally go out on like trails back behind our house and chase after dad. And he's like a bolt of lightning out in the distance, and I loved it, just like waddling down the trail. It was the best time ever. As I've gotten older, I love reading about various runners and triathletes and the big stuff they're up to. I had the amazing fortune when I was a freshman in college, a senior who I like super looked up to, this guy Josh, was going out and he was training for a triathlon. And I remember like, wow, like that's so crazy. Like I've heard of this Ironman thing. I have never known anyone that's done that. You're doing it. Wow. And that it expanded my mind of what's possible. Like, wow, you can train yourself to swim that far and run that far and bike that far. Oh my gosh. And that's, I think, what mentorship does. It expands your horizon. You have a whole new perspective when someone shows you what's possible and then actually shows you, here's the path that I've blazed. Here's the path that you can follow too, to blaze your own vantage into the world.
I love that. I love that because that's so powerful of, being able to have somebody follow you down a little path and then blaze whatever path they're going to make with their potential. Now, I want to go back to one of your extremely amazing adventures of the Gobi crossing.
Hey.
I want you to tell me one of your favorite stories from that crossing in 2015.
Oh man. So this was my first big, like multi-day ultramarathon. I was 24 at the time and was just super pumped to be out there. Like, oh my gosh, this is like dream come true. There was a big name in the race, guy named Kima Martinez, who's a former silver medalist Olympian from Spain, one of the fastest Europeans ever. And he's in the race. I get to run with this guy. I speak broken Spanish. I get to like hang out at the campfire with this guy. And it was just so much fun, kind of just like chasing, his dust as we go through. Halfway, about 75 miles in, I'm in 9th place. And I'm feeling like just absolutely amped on, like, wow, I'm having a great race. I'm hauling this rucksack. I'm making it happen. We're crossing a river. There's like 5 rivers you got to cross. It's like the 4th of the 5. And my foot slips on one of the rocks. And the next thing I know, I hear that's my knee like popping out. And it's an MCL that is now on fire. So it's like a bolt of lightning right there. And I drag myself out of the river. I don't want to drown. And then I can't put any weight on this thing. It's like shooting pains up and down my knee. And I've got to limp, hobble, and then crawl my way about 10 miles to the next aid station, where the doctor says, hey, we can get an ATV, or if you really need it, like there's a chopper I can call in. And it's like, no, dude, I didn't come this far to only come this far. I need you to wrap this up and give me the strongest painkillers you've got. And Dr. Nyberg, who was a wonderful wilderness physician, did exactly that. I got 3 or 4 ibuprofen down the hatch, and he mummified my knee there, and off I went. Next 70 miles, waddling my way to like a 35th or 36th place finish when all was told. So
70 miles like that.
70 miles, which was all kinds of brutal. So.
Oh my goodness! Do you go to this super dark place that you've never been before and just remain in it, and like the medication numbs it only so much, right?
Yeah, the ibuprofen helped for maybe 2 or 3 miles of that, and then it was long gone. But yeah, you do go to a dark place and you shift. So like there's a big emotional spectrum, and initially it was pure determination, and then that becomes a pity party where I'm feeling very sorry for myself. Oh, why is this happening to me? And then quickly you've got to get to another gear, because pitying yourself is not going to get you much further down the track. And from there, basically tried to disassociate my knee. We're like, hey, that's not even my knee. Why am I worried about that? That's somebody else's knee that's in pain. I'm just a guy waddling down the track here. And
right,
that was several miles before I had an iPod with a little bit of charge in it. Throw that in, get some Led Zeppelin going for a few miles, and just really took a few moments to say, wow, there are these wonderful moonscapes all around, these huge sand dunes, these big rock fields. There are yaks in the distance. Like, what a special time to be alive. And let's just phase out a little bit of that pain just for a moment to just appreciate this for what it is. And after a few moments of gratitude there, you have a little bit more strength, a little bit more energy to put one foot in front of the next once more.
That's amazing. It's one of those things, if you never get into those parts, and I think that's endurance athletes understand getting into those dark moments, and I think a lot of them are in those dark moments right now.
Hey.
But these are manageable compared to what can actually possibly happen.
Absolutely. And you got to break it down because, it's how do I get to that next rock 20 feet away, 50 feet away, not the next checkpoint, and definitely not the finish line because it's just too far away.
It's way too far away. Now, when you're going through your challenges and going through some of those things that most people deem crazy, we all talked about that before this call. Yep. How do you set yourself up for success? Because if we always, like you were talking about those little goals, but what are some other things to be able to set yourself up for success in these long-term, in essence, high aspiration goals?
Yeah, so I really try to break it down into what are the fundamentals here. And so, for me, I've got a bunch of big running goals I'm working toward right now, and I keep it simple. So, am I logging? I want to run 7 days a week, and I've got a weekly mileage target that fluctuates a little bit, but it's trending upward. And I measure what matters. And so for me, it's the mileage. It's how many 8-hour sleep nights each week I'm getting. It's how many morning routines am I going through to keep mobility going. And then after I finish each run, am I stretching out properly and kind of decompressing thereafter? So those 4 things, if I'm measuring those, I find I do pretty well achieving them. And then that really long-term dream, it's just a series of hitting one goal after the next. And then lo and behold, you're at the start line physically and mentally prepared to take it on. And it's going to be tough. And you're going to face setbacks and it will feel impossible during moments, but actually you've sharpened the axe, you're ready to roll. Whereas I think if we don't bake it down into like, what are the real fundamentals here, we can show up to a start line ill-prepared, or we throw in the towel, or we cancel registration before we're over there at all. And that stings. I've been in that boat too, and that's no fun.
Oh, I can imagine. That's not an easy thing to understand, or not an easy thing to do. Now, you talked about you get sleep. I highly doubt that.
Hey, I find it's number one for me for recovery. So I aim for that 8 hours. I'm not 100% yet, but I feel just like an extra pep in the step next day when I'm getting it in.
Oh, it's critical to be able to have that mentality. Now, you said you worked in China. Now you're back in Seattle.
That's right.
And now you are just now. What do you do besides doing all this philanthropic things that you do to be able to help students to go to college?
Yeah, so that's a lot of what I'm up to. So yeah, work on a couple organizations, diet.com and MoneyThink, and then I volunteer on a couple of boards for organizations that I'm a big supporter and believer in. And then I'm running. So I'm running somewhere between 2 and 5 hours a day as it goes. So a lot of time training. And then I'm not doing that. I'm playing with my French bulldog or walking around the forest. So I've got a pretty simple life during COVID-19. So.
I love it. So now what is the next big challenge? I know we were talking about this, but what is besides the run that you're going to do after this? Because you run crazy amounts every single day because you're preparing for possibly something in September.
That's right. Yeah. So I've got the short-term goal is after our time together, I'm going to go knock out 8 or 10 miles out here in the nice Seattle rain. My intermediate goal, I'm trying to become the first guy to do an entire circumnavigation of Bainbridge Island along the shoreline. So 53 miles of shoreline, and you got an 8-hour tidal cycle. So it's kind of like, you need to run a sub-4 back-to-back on a sloped shoreline. So I'm gearing up for that. That's my intermediate goal. I'm targeting probably late June, early July, depending on when there's a good tidal zone to knock that out. And then my sort of big longer term goal is a run across America. And so I'm gearing up. September was the initial target. So I'd love to make that happen. Though with COVID-19, I know so many of us have big plans that are kind of on pause. So right. I'm rolling forward. I'm training as if it's going. Though I don't want to be a vector for the virus. And so until there's a vaccine, I'm gonna try to do the responsible and prudent thing and put off the crazy idea until it's been safe to attempt.
I love it. I love it. You are a responsible individual, and I wanna go to something that I read on your site from that former Secretary of the Air Force, and it really rings true to who you are. He called you a humble leader who can inspire the young and the old. I think that's such a powerful thing. Now, when you look at leadership, I want to hear from you. What do you feel is the quintessential aspects of leadership?
Yeah, I think back to dinners when I was in high school with my grandfather, who was a Marine throughout the South Pacific during the Second World War, including at Iwo Jima. And I asked him a similar question, and he shared that the officers he most respected and appreciated during his time in the Marines were those that never asked their men to do something that they wouldn't be willing to do themselves. And so it's both justice exemplo, it's leadership by example, and then it's officers eating last. It's really always putting the welfare of your people in front of yourself. And I loved hearing about that stuff, and it's so tangible when it's like literally like a band of brothers and sisters fighting a war. I mean, that's something that you've got to be able to count on each other. And I feel similar with like sports teams growing up. I felt similar in startup land, where you have this little, merry band of teammates, and that's all you've got. And you got this big mission. How are we going to make it happen? We've got to trust each other, and you got to know that I've got your back, and vice versa. And so for me, it comes down to leadership by example. You don't need a title to do big stuff. Well before I ever called myself CEO of my little company, I was trying to step up, and I was learning the hard way about what leadership's about. Little League baseball and high school tennis and football and soccer and basketball. And those lessons are, I think, can guide you, whether it's in an office setting or, in a pool, or as you're putting in miles on the bike or on the run as well.
I love it. I love it. So I want to end with asking you a question. What is your favorite quote, and why do you have that quote?
My favorite quote, one that I reread that has inspired me anew, is the old Steve Prefontaine adage that to give anything less than your best is to sacrifice the gift. Because I believe every single one of us has been given gifts, and part of the meaning of life, in my view, is to figure out what is that gift, and to try to build it, refine it, share it to as great of an extent as you feel comfortable and as you're called to do. And I feel like I'm hitting my stride with that in a few ways now, and I'm really grateful for that gift and for the opportunity to then hopefully share it and to help others find their gift too.
I love it. I love it. If you want to find out more about Greg Nance, you can go to his website. It's gregnance.org. You are an inspiration, sir, and we hope if September doesn't work out, that another time in the year will work out for you, and we know you'll accomplish that. So thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate it.
100%, Rob. Absolutely my pleasure. And I would love to connect with folks sincerely through the website or through Instagram. Greg Runs Far. Say hi. I'd love to connect and catch up with your training too.
Definitely. I would advise anybody who is looking for some inspiration or to be an impact leader like yourself to go to those. So thank you again. If you want to find out more or actually rewatch this, because there's so much information in here, like I said in my post, Dos Equis should be coming to you soon as the most interesting man. They need a new guy, and they need you to be that guy. So
if only I could grow a beard, I'd be set. So yeah.
There you go. There you go. Well, find out more about who's next on our webinars at iwishiwasracing.com. Until next time, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you later.
Thank you, Rob. Cheers.
Thanks. Cheers.
Woo.